me. In national and local newspapers, you are being noticed because of the no extradition clauses on the warrants. Please describe how warrants are entered into the system and how the California Department of Justice, as you said, has made mistakes. And then please tell us how many you have extradited in the past 6 months.
Okay. First of all, the warrants that are in the system are being put in and they are reviewed by us and the district attorney's office. And the district attorney's office makes the determination if they're going to be extradited or not, based on the charges and the cases. And they make that determination, then we enter them appropriately here to our records division. What's been cited in this latest report was a batch of warrants that were already in the system that had extraditions on them, and then because they weren't updated by a certain point in time, that they automatically defaulted to no, lost the word. Extradition. Anyway, so with that, we've now gone back and we're going back through the entire list with the district attorney's office to make the changes and put all those correctly. But I can guarantee you this, anytime there's a warrant in the system, even if it says no to extradition, the arresting agency calls here to see whether or not there is any extradition and whether we'll come get them. And I'm telling you, Sheriff, I'll go get every felony warrant that's out there, and I'll bring them back here for prosecution.
Okay, the second part to that was something about 6 months. Let me read it again.
Please
tell us how many you have extradited in the last 6 months.
That I cannot tell you. I have no way of knowing at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I can find out and get back to you, but I don't know.
Okay. Here's a question for Sergeant Withrow. Prior to becoming sheriff, Steve Moore had considerable experience with the department, and he held assignments at every level. What assignments and experience do you have that has prepared you to prepare budgets and administer the sheriff's office?
Well, majority of my career was out on the streets, working, as I said, 12 years as a K-9 SWAT team, out arresting bad guys, chasing them, going after them. So a majority of that was just street level, protecting our citizens. For the past 4 years, I've been assigned to the alternative work program and the community court program. I have my budget at AWP, which when I came into AWP, it was losing $350,000 a year of taxpayer money, and had been basically since its inception. And I went in, and within the first year, we turned it around, made it, by law we can't be profitable, but we made it where we are now making enough money to where we can buy new equipment and update the carpet in our building and give some of the staff what they need. So I'm gonna run our budgets just like every sheriff has before me, and this is kind of a misnomer that any sheriff goes in and sits in his office and looks down and prepares his own budget. What we do is we have command staff all throughout the department, and the captains of those divisions prepare their budgets, and they have their lieutenants. Just as I prepared my budget out at AWP. I remember the first year there, because of the layoffs that were going on, I was able to find enough money in my AWP budget, saved it so that we saved 2 correctional officer positions. So I will continue to do as every other sheriff has done, and take those submitted budgets from each division and their captains and sit around with them and our staff and figure out what we can afford in each division and what we can't. And we'll work with the number that the county gives us to reach, and we will try and reach that number. But the biggest thing is to make sure you go in and fight for what your people need. Fight for what your department needs, what your citizens need, to make sure that we keep our citizens safe. Because anybody can balance a budget. It's easy to balance a budget. You just say, give me a number, and I'll lay off as many people as I need, or cut as many as I need. Balancing the budget isn't the question. Keeping a functional department and a safe community while balancing your budget. That's the key. That's the key. And that's kind of what we've lost here. We can see it with our crime that's going on. We can see what's happened to our farmers. And we need to get back to having that balance. And that comes with having a good working relationship with our Board of Supervisors and making sure they understand that although you throw a number at me, we may not reach that, because public safety and officer safety is more important.
Thank you. Sheriff Moore, this is a tough question. It's a taxpayer question. I'm going to ask it anyway. What did we get for the $9 million that was spent during your effort to build a new jail?
Well, that $9 million was funding that was put forth for staff from us that were part of the transition team, which was required by capital projects as part of the overall process. Part of that money was also spent for project management and design. And so all of those things were necessary and required in order for us to move forward with the $80 million to be able to build a new facility. When the board decided not to build it, then we stopped, okay? Though that money had been expended over 6 years and everything else, it is not a waste because we went back and we used that information and we used the skills that we learned in the designs partially and other things to do the SB 1022 project. And as we move forward for another phase, we will do the same thing again. We'll be utilizing that same materials that we've already developed in order to get the bang for our buck out of those processes. But that was money that was spent by capital projects specific to the need for the project. Everybody figured that it was going to be going forward. It was kind of a shock when we didn't move forward at the end. So it wasn't like we were wasting it or just throwing it lightly. Everybody was working hard. They were doing all the things they needed to do. It was the due diligence on the project to be able to move it forward.
All right, here's a question for both, and I'll begin with Sergeant Withrow. The Sheriff of San Joaquin County wields considerable power and influence, and I believe that we should know who we are voting for. In the interest of openness and transparency, would you be willing to sign a waiver that would allow a member of the media to review your personnel file and report on it?
Absolutely.
Same here.
Ask and answer.
Anybody need a water up there?
You guys okay? All right, thank you. All right, another question for both. I'll begin with Sheriff Moore. Do you believe the county could save money if Stockton annexed the county pocket areas that are now geographically defined within the city limits? How would this impact the sheriff's budget? Would you be willing to endorse the idea of that annexation to Stockton officials? You want me to go over the first question again?
No,
There's a three-part. Do you believe the county could save money if Stockton annexed the county pocket areas that are now defined within the city limits?
I'm not sure that it could. I would have to look at the analysis because not only you're saying give that responsibility over to Stockton Police Department, okay? Basically the city of Stockton for services. On its face, it looks like, okay, great, we're going to get rid of this and now we're going to go that way. But remember, what's tied to that is property tax revenue. So while we may get lesser cost on this end, we may also lose more money in the process that we're being able to redistribute throughout the county budget to help everybody. So I have to look at an analysis of that before I would say one way or the other.
Okay. Same question, Sergeant?
Well, the sheriff's right. There's property taxes tied to that, and it wouldn't just be the police department. Obviously, there'd be fire coverage and everything else that goes along with that. But I wouldn't want to give up my county pockets. I like our citizens. I think our citizens like us. I think they like the service that their deputies give them, and so I would fight to keep those. If the board of supervisors felt that our county was in such a need that they could prove to us that it was a financial savings, okay. But I like protecting our people, and I want to hang on.
All right, as a follow-up to that, and I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, that Pat Withrow would be against annexing those pocket areas into the city, but that Sheriff Moore might be willing to look into the analysis of that at some future date. And the reason I'm asking that is because I think a lot of people in the room have heard that there are a lot of people that are kind of nibbling around the edges of that happening at some point. What about the response time for calls? Would that be an improvement to, let's say, those people in the outlying areas? Because now, as I understand it, you have deputy sheriffs that are inside the city limits working at those areas. But if they were removed from that, you would have more staff patrol to take care of the rest of the county, right? So response time, do you see any benefit to that?
You know, again, we'd have to look at the numbers. You could, I guess, if you had that, but I believe our response time is good for our people outlying, and it's good for our people inside the cities. I mean, we partner with our city partners, and it's not just Stockton, it's Manteca that we have some pockets and things like that, and we need to focus more on getting more officers out in the outlying area as opposed to yanking them from inside the city here and putting them out there. We have a responsibility to our people in the city and to protect them, and I want to keep them. And as I said, I want to redeploy our people more and get them out in the outlying. As I said, our farmers are getting killed, and we need more people out there working aggressively to protect them. And so I think there are other ways than just yanking them out of our pockets here to get a response time.
Okay. Sheriff Moore, do you have any other comments on that, or are we going to move on?
I think the response times, as the sergeant said, are good right now, but that's partly because of the fact that we have the community cars. Okay, Sergeant Willis talked about wanting to take those community cars and redeploy them. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think the community's cars are doing an excellent job in their communities. They're doing all those things like getting out and talking to people, giving their cell phone numbers to the people, working with neighborhood watches. And they're being more than proactive because they get to look at problems before they become police problems. They get an opportunity to address issues, bring in other parts of the county staff to be able to make things work in those communities. We need to expand that portion of this program and do more things with it. And we are looking forward to doing that. We had gone 2 years into that project. We had to stop because of the recession. And now that we're starting to come back around, we got 14 deputies on a federal grant to be able to go forward again with community-oriented policing, and we're going to be doing that. We're currently hiring. We've got 4 that just came out of the academy. We have now 5 coming out of the academy in view, which means we have 11 more to hire, and those people we dedicated to that. And then when you talk about the farmers, I see the farmers as a community. So they're going to be getting additional staffing moving forward as we have that staffing available. And the farmers have endorsed me. I just got the endorsement of the San Joaquin Farm Bureau. So they are behind me on this process. So we're making good progress. We're working to service them and do the things that they need to be doing out there. So we're looking at all that.
Okay, one last question on that then. So let's say that the city of Stockton proposed this to annex those areas. Would both of you then be forthcoming in giving the city the data that they need to ascertain and to analyze what the impact might be?
Yes, it would. And in fact, the community of Weston Ranch, which is right around the sheriff's office out there, asked me for data on what it would cost them to convert over to deputy sheriffs. So we provided that data not only to the Western Ranch Association that wanted the information, but we also forwarded that to the chief of police with the information so they could see it. Ultimately, they decided that they would stay with the chief of police after he met with them. But be more than happy to provide any information to help make a better decision on all of these cases.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We're getting close to the end here. We have another question for both. And Sergeant, I'll begin with you. What can the Sheriff Department do to improve its partnership with other law enforcement agencies in the county when it comes to fighting gang activity?
Well, I think it's telling that every law enforcement agency in the county has come out and endorsed me. We really need to start working better together. We need to start sharing information. I mentioned this in a different forum. We don't have one set computer system where we're all on the same system. There are some out there. There's a thing called cow gangs, and we have cousins, and we have, Segis and Klets and things like that. But we need a system for our community where all officers are able to share on that information. So when an officer in Tracy stops a carload of bangers, he can instantly find out that, oh gosh, all these guys are registered as gangbangers in Lodi because these guys are at war. So we need to be able to share information like that, and the only way you do that is by reaching out to the chiefs of police of those areas and forming partnerships and being willing to say, okay, I don't care who gets the credit or who gets the glory of this. It's about the safety of our citizens, and we're going to share whatever resources and information that we have and make sure that we throw this net over San Joaquin County where bad guys fear to tread. But that starts with forming those partnerships with those chiefs of police throughout our county. And I've spoken to many of them, and they look forward to a better relationship with our office.
All right. Sheriff Moore, same question. What can the Sheriff Department do to improve its partnership with other law enforcement agencies when it comes to fighting gang activity?
We currently have an excellent relationship with all the departments. I meet monthly with all the chiefs, with the probation chief, with the DAI chief, district attorney, along with the parole area chief. So we meet and we talk about phones. We work collaboratively together. We do regular missions together. One of the major missions we do every year is just before the holidays to go out and hit all of the robberies inmates that are, parolees, probationers, and anybody that's out there for robbery or has warrants for robbery. We go out and do a 3-day mission on that. And every year we've knocked the robberies down all through the Christmas season, which has been excellent. We've been able to make that happen and do other things probably together. I'm also contributing a sergeant and 4 staff and a correctional officer for gang intelligence to the Stockton Police Department as part of the countywide gang task force. Now, another area would be to get more people assigned to that countywide gang task force from the other agencies. Unfortunately, the other agencies are hurting just as bad as we are, and they've had to deal with the recession. They don't have the extra staff. They can't find that funding to be able to do that. They help out wherever they can. They provide us additional staff wherever we can on issues and we need to do operations. But they don't have it. So we're carrying the brunt of the load for them. We're out there doing it. Now, you talk about the citizens and you talk about the city, and then you talk about the crime rate, okay? The crime rate in the county, folks, has been trending down all through my tenure as sheriff. And you can look that up on the state website, okay? Is crime rampant higher in the county or in the cities? Absolutely. But that's why we're contributing staff to the city now. We're working in conjunction with all those people. We're trying to make sure that we protect all of our citizens and not just the county citizens versus the city citizens. And besides, you know, my wife goes to and from out in the county area, works in the city, so does my son. They go back and forth. So we want to make sure we are doing all those things. Added staff to the countywide gang task force. Run more programs as we can, and we can afford to do that. Do more education. We need to do more on that with our process. And we're doing better programs with our youth. Like I run an Explorer program to be able to bring 14-year-olds and up into the office to give them an opportunity to see what the office is like, look for careers in law enforcement, and hopefully keep them out of trouble while they're in those formative years. Additionally, we also now have a cadet program where we take 18-year-olds and we pay them to work for us. They work 20 hours a week. They have to be full-time students. They have to maintain a 2.0 grade average. And then as they decide on a career choice, if they want to stay with the sheriff's office, we make sure that they get the opportunities to move into those fields within the sheriff's office, no matter what they are. And that's paying dividends. It's helping us hire faster, it's giving us better quality people, and things are working on that process.
Okay, follow-up question. I heard Sergeant Withrow say something about shouldn't matter who gets the credit. Is there some kind of a, am I watching too much Law and Order, or is there something to be said for an agency getting the arrest and being proud of it? Is that one of the obstacles to get this computer, a single source of this information across the lines of these law enforcement agencies? I mean, how realistic is that going forward to try to get this computer data to be delivered in a uniform manner to all law enforcement agencies?
Well, it's available now. As I said, it's available through Cousins, and Cousins is a program that we built and paid for through the county, and the county owns it. And I make it available to every law enforcement agency in the county. As long as they have an office here in San Joaquin County, they can have a terminal. We'll put it on their MDCs. We'll give them access to the process, and they can gain all kinds of intelligence because then they have access to all the information that comes from the jail on these things. CalGangs is a statewide computer system that was put in place where persons that are identified and meet all the qualifications to be certified gang members are entered into this database. And that's also available to them. They can access it through their MDCs if they have access to PLETs. They can get it through by calling in or going into records divisions. There is no, we learned a long time ago, at least for me, there's no, you know, I'm better than you or I get the credit, because it doesn't work that way. The persons that, when you start doing that, the person that loses is you, the public, and we don't want that. You know, I could care less who gets the credit, I could care less on the others. Just like now, sometimes somebody calls our office and they say, well, I live at such an address, they got something going. We send deputies. Sometimes we turn out that it's not in the county, but we still send a deputy out there. We handle the call. We turn the investigation over to the city whenever we can, if that's appropriate. Otherwise, we work until it's done and we take care of it. I don't want to see people victimized twice.
Sergeant, getting back to this, you mentioned something, I think, about kind of a broken communication there. So if this is happening now, what's your idea on that? I mean, it appears that you think that something could be better in that regard.
Well,
communication, right?
I do because I've worked it. You know, I've been out on the street and I worked in the street crimes unit, and I worked in gang units and worked alongside them all with my dog, and it absolutely can be. The sheriff mentioned these things that are available to people, but everybody's not on this. Everybody's not on the same thing. There's not the top law enforcement officer in the county sitting these guys down in their meetings that they're having apparently monthly and saying, look, we need this. We need this because the officers say so. Because I know they're saying it because I've been out there living it. So just because the systems are there doesn't mean people are using them. And we need this to have a cohesive battle against these gangs and drugs in our county here. And every city needs to be involved in this, and you get that buy-in with their chiefs, and you explain it to them, and you sell it to them, and the Cal Gangs website is great. It's amazing what you can do with that thing. You can, if you just saw a blue El Camino fleeing the scene, you can put in blue El Camino, and bam, it'll pop up every banger in town that has a blue El Camino, because an officer has taken the time to document that and input it. But not all agencies are inputting into Cal Gangs. I'm not even sure if we're doing it anymore. So we need to absolutely have everybody on the same page, because it's basically what happened at 9/11. Everybody had a little piece of the pie, but they weren't talking to each other. And we need to talk to each other in this day and age. And with computers, it should just be easy. I'm not a computer whiz. My son had to show me how to use my iPhone. But we should be able to talk to each other about what's going on in our county, and we should make sure that happens.
So it appears that Sheriff Moore just answered that question that you had, whether or not the Cal Gangs system is being, if you're providing information into that system, Sheriff, you're saying it has
providing information in that system.
You're still there, okay. Another question for both. And I'll begin with Sergeant Withrow. You both talk about the need for more jail space, or beds, let's say, but for low-level offenders, would it be less expensive to develop a larger inmate participation in the community work project and possibly an anti-graffiti unit? And I think I'm feeling some of the frustration that comes out of questions like this is that, back years ago when I was in the grand jury work, I toured a lot of these facilities, and I can tell you a lot of these inmates are sitting there playing cards, reading books, watching TV. I mean, to me, some of the inmates have it pretty good. So for the average John and Jane Doe, like myself, I'm thinking, why aren't they out cleaning up the area? Can't they at least do that? Is there more that we can do in that area?
Well, you're kind of in my wheelhouse here, since I run the alternative work program, which are the programs, and the C-Corps program, which are the programs that get either in-custody inmates or inmates who have been sentenced, but have an alternative to going to custody. There are a couple problems. Obviously, we would like every inmate that has victimized our families that is possible repaying his debt to our society in some way. But the first problem starts obviously with our bed space out at the jail. The DA is not able to prosecute as they used to on these low-level offenders. They're making those plea bargains, and we're just not even filing on the cases because they know we don't have space for them. So it's the baddest of the bad, really, that we are going after right now. So that reflects in our jail population. So we don't want to let people out that are going to be a threat to our society still, obviously, at least until they've served their sentence. So in my programs, I've really worked with the rules and regulations as to who we can put back out on the street. One of the changes I brought since I've been there is that, okay, if you want to be on my program, you don't want to go into custody. Let's say your crime was alcohol related or drug related. So you only become an idiot and beat your loved ones when you're drinking. Well, now if you want to come out of our jail, or now if you want to stay out of our jail, I make you wear an alcohol monitoring system. So 24/7, we'll know if that guy drinks alcohol. So we can let him out, makes it safer for his loved ones. He's not such an idiot when he's not drinking, and it keeps them safe. Same thing with drug use. We make him wear a drug patch now that we test every 7 days to find out if he's staying off dope, so he's not as violent as we let him out. So we're trying to find everything that we can. We now have GPS tracking devices that we got through AB 109 money. So we can track these guys at least while we're on duty. We need to do a better job of that. Our surrounding police agencies have no idea who in their cities is on GPS tracking. We don't let them know. It should be as easy as flipping on their computer screen in their car to see who's leaping around in their county on a GPS tracker. But they don't know that right now. So we need to improve that. So we're working as hard as we can. I think our inmate population, we're taking out as many as we can and making them pick up weeds and trash and stuff like that. But again, it comes down to safety. I'd like to see them a little busier in custody. If they're not gonna go in and try and get help, rehabilitated, get an education or something like that, then shoot, they should be doing some manual labor around the place, filling sandbags, digging a hole one day, filling it back in the next day, whatever it takes to give them an incentive, either not to come back to our jail, not to victimize our citizens, or to get involved to try and help themselves and not go down this path again.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Moore, any thoughts on the work project or anti-graffiti units that work
Well,
in the community?
with the work project and the anti-graffiti project, yes, we can definitely improve those and put more inmates out on those processes. We need to make sure that we pick the right inmates for the classification. But one of the things that's now going to be possible, because we did eliminate those other two programs, talking about the auto body shop and the upholstery shop, the inmate welfare fund is now at a point where it's solvent, so we can now start expanding those again. We can start putting more of those out. We can pay for more rigs. We can pay for more supervisors. Because currently, all the supervisors on the C-Corps are not paid for by the county. They're paid for at the inmate welfare fund. So now that we have been able to recoup those monies and be able to build that fund, we can now move forward with that. So we have definite things. And I'm sure Sergeant Withrow gets tired of listening to my messages on his phone at C-Corps when I'm calling in about trash dumps and graffiti on a regular basis as I move through the county and report those to be able to pick up. And they do a great job. They work very hard. They go out there, they pick up the trash and garbage, they move it out, they paint it with graffiti, they do the other things. But there's definitely more things we can do with that.
Okay, thank you. We've come down to the end of our questions, and what I'd like to do is open it now for each of you to have a 5-minute closing comment. I would like you, if you can, to stay focused on the money issues. That's what a taxpayer association, that's what we want to be focused on as much as we can. So let's see, Sheriff Moore, you began with the opening comments. Sheriff, can you go ahead and begin? You've got up to 5 minutes on your closing statements.
Well, thank you again, all of you, for coming tonight and listening and being part of this. You know, this has been a long process. I've been at this for about 3 years now. I had a long learning curve to learn about this animal called politics and to get involved. But it's important. It's important that we all get involved and make a difference in our community. As I stated at the start of this, and the reason that I did this is because I don't think our county's going the way that it should. I don't think that we're doing what we should to protect our citizens. I don't think we're doing what we should to increase our jail bed space. We've had 7.5 years almost now of no new jail bed space. We had this problem 7.5 years ago. We got it today. You know, when you start talking about taxpayers' money, that $80 million was taxpayers' money. It wasn't just appeared out of nowhere. And instead of doing something reasonable, we don't have to spend all $80 million when we get it. We could have done something quick, inexpensive, made sure we got beds, not wasted $9 million of our general fund dollars, and we could have had this problem solved, and I could be retired and camping with my wife. But we still have this problem. It's too important to walk away from. So we need to do a better job protecting our citizens. I don't think any of us feel like crime is trending down. I know our farmers are at an all-time high of getting victimized. I know some of the big farmers at the Farm Bureau just came out and endorsed the sheriff, but I can tell you all the little farmers weren't at that vote, and they're getting hammered, and they're tired of it, and they want to change. I know our staff at our facility, the civilian staff, the correctional staff, the deputy sheriff's staff, have all said that it's time for someone different at the top, and I think that's telling. And again, it's not because Mr. Moore is a bad person or anything like that. It's just because we haven't got the results that we needed for our county, and it's time for a change. It's time for a new set of eyes on it. So we need to get back in the game. We need to make sure that we're back in our schools, making sure our kids don't go down this path again. We need to make sure that our citizens are allowed to protect themselves and help us and protect their neighbors until we have a chance to get there. And this all starts with making bad guys responsible for victimizing our citizens, and there have to be consequences for coming to San Joaquin County and hurting or taking advantage of one of our citizens. And that all starts right there at our jail. So again, thank you so much for tonight, and I look forward to being your sheriff in the future.
Thank you. Sheriff Moore?
Again, thank you. It is grateful to have you all here. I know you could have been other places and done other things or been home with your families, and that truly is a positive for our community. I can tell you that I have worked very hard, and I will continue to do that. You know, I'm of an age where I can retire right now. I won't get any additional benefit in this next 4 years. And that's not the reason why I'm running. I'm running to continue the things that I want to see finished. Now, of all the things that I started when I ran in '06 and we took office in '07, the one thing I have yet to be able to accomplish is the additional jail bed space. Now, I've been successful at getting us funding, lease revenue bond funding of $80 million. Was able to get us $33.3 million, and that seemed to go away. So all that has done is just more invigorated me to be able to do it in the future. And I will make sure that we get it done in this next 4 years, make sure we get that additional funding. So all I can tell you is that you talk about a lot of different things. You talk about, you talk about the deputies, you talk about the civilian staff, you talk about the correctional officers. I guess it depends on who you talk to, because I talk to all of those folks, and they're telling me a different story. They're telling me they're behind me, they want to see me stick around, they're grateful that all the things we've been able to do for them, you know, new equipment, new weaponry, new computers, new everything, new cars, new everything else, and everything going on with it. You talk about the Deputy Sheriff's Association and the SEIU and the correctional officers wanting a seat at the table, okay? Well, I have a blocked out afternoon on the fourth Wednesday of every month to meet with union representatives. And when I first took over as sheriff, they came for the first couple of weeks and then they stopped. So then my secretary kept calling them and they just said, no thanks, they didn't want to do that. So the door is always open for them to come in. I'm more than willing to talk to them. I'm more than willing to meet with them. I'm more than willing to discuss issues. But they don't seem to want to take care of that. You talk about the 12-hour shifts. Those have been part of the CO's MOU. They want the 12-hour shifts. They like the schedule they have. They work 5 days, they're off 5 days. And yes, they were doing some mandatory overtime now, and those are other things that were part of an imposed contract that the county did. So there's a lot of different things going on when you talk about what's happening and everything else. You talk about the honor farm, you know, the gates being open. Well, the honor farm is not just a facility, it's also part where our central services is. So you have to have access to it. We also receive our parts and parcels from toilet paper to everything else we need through there. The laundry goes through there, everything else. So there's a reason why the gates are open. But we have secured $384,000 through the CCP to be able to build additional fencing around the honor farm. And we're going to do that. We're going to do some other things, put in additional control gates. So we're trying to make those as much safer as we possibly can and more secure. We're moving forward. We're not just sitting here waiting for things to fall on us. Now, talked about the modulars, okay? We did look at those under AB 900, originally $80 million. And the state said that modulars don't seem to last as long because the funding is not just an $80 million, here you go. It's lease revenue bond funding. And the facilities themselves are the collateral behind the bonds that are going to be sold in order to generate that funding. So the facility has to last for 30 to 35 years or more to be able to get that return on the investment in order to make that happen, so we can get that money going. So those are the requirements. On top of that, we again checked with the Bureau of State and Community Corrections. There are currently no large modular facilities being used anywhere in the state. Okay? That's because a lot of these, when you have to come up to meet Title 15 and Title 24, and especially the state fire marshal's fire requirements, it gets extremely expensive to be able to retrofit these units to be able to make them work, along with the others. So, I mean, if that was a viable alternative, I would have executed a long time ago. It's just not viable with the dollars that you're going to put forward now and get the return on them. Now, as I said, I take my fiduciary responsibility with the board and with you all very seriously. I look to make sure that I stay within budget. Now, I have gone out of my way to train my captains and my lieutenants in the budget. They get a monthly report. Every month, they get to see how much money they've expended for salaries, benefits, their vehicles, you name it, they get a full analysis. We discuss that at captain's meeting. We look at areas. We work together to come up with strategy if they're starting to show overruns. And that's the way we've been able to tame the budget and stay within the budget that we agreed to when we do with the County Board of Supervisors. And as far as the board, I have an excellent relationship with the board. I have the endorsement of 4 members of the board as my forward bid for 2014. So I know I can work with them. I know we can do things. I know we have done this in the past. At one point, we were a little bit in jeopardy of losing our community cars. And I went with the community and asked them to contact their Board of Supervisors members, and they did. And I told them I don't want threats. I just want them to tell the board what the program does and how well it works. Well, they did that, and the program was safe. We need to keep that program. not redo the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope we were respectful with our questions tonight. I believe we were. Hard questions, but I think they were all respectful. We do appreciate you, Pat and Steve, for showing up tonight. We appreciate your service to the community and your desire to keep us all safe. Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate it. We've got a good crowd here. It was a pleasure having all of you. So on behalf of everyone associated with the San Joaquin Taxpayers Association, thank you all for coming and have a wonderful evening.